Then there is the story of Sarah and Lena, a story written in the invisible ink of childhood secrets. Sarah and Lena's friendship was a living archive. It held the memory of skinned knees, of first heartbreaks whispered under sleeping bags, of the terrifying, exhilarating transition into adulthood. When Sarah's father died suddenly, it was Lena who held her as she shattered. In the raw, jagged year that followed, Sarah's grief was a private, ugly country. The only person she allowed the map to was Lena. She shared the irrational anger, the moments of paralyzing fear, the guilt, the dark, unlovable thoughts that grief births. Lena was her witness, her vault. Their trust was a sacred, silent cathedral built from all those years. The betrayal happened on an ordinary Tuesday. At a casual backyard barbecue years later, a mutual friend sipping wine laughed and said to Sarah, "Oh, I remember Lena telling us about your dark year, how you thought you'd never be happy again. So dramatic. But look at you now." The air left Sarah's lungs. The language was precise. A permanent gray filter, the guilt of being the one who lived. Phrases she had sobbed only into Lena's ear. In that moment, the cathedral collapsed into dust. Lena had not sold her secrets or used them for blackmail. She had simply left the vault door open. She had traded Sarah's most vulnerable currency for a moment of connection. For the insightful, deep aura it gave her in other social circles, she had transformed sacred pain into a poignant anecdote. The painful truth Sarah was forced to swallow was this: trust granted in one context does not guarantee safety in another. Your most profound vulnerability, offered as the ultimate token of faith, can become another person's social capital. The betrayal here wasn't malice. It was a catastrophic failure of custodianship. It revealed a painful, grating truth. You cannot control the integrity of the vault once you hand over the key. The trust was absolute on one side and casually relative on the other. The lesson is haunting sometimes. The person you trust with your broken pieces doesn't see a sacred duty. They see interesting fragments they can occasionally show to others. Consider the story of Maya, a story etched in the ledgers of family duty. In her immigrant household, the principle was family first. It was an unshakable doctrine. As the eldest daughter, Maya embodied it. While her friends traveled after university, she worked overtime. A portion of her paycheck, without fail, went home to help with bills, to support her younger brother's less certain path. She was the planner, the reliable one, the bedrock. Her brother, charming and adrift, was the one who needed the net. Their parents constantly worried about him, and Maya's stability was the reassurance that allowed that worry. She trusted the system. She trusted that her sacrifice was seen, was valued, was part of a familial equity that would, in its own way, balance out. The human heart is built for connection. Its very rhythm seems to search for a synchrony with another. We are born reaching out, and we spend our lives building bridges of trust, from the tentative handshake of a new partner to the unspoken, deep-rooted faith of a decades-long friendship. Trust is the invisible mortar that holds the architecture of our lives together. It allows us to love, to collaborate, to dream beyond the confines of our own skulls. But what happens when that mortar turns to dust? When the load-bearing wall you leaned your entire weight against simply vanishes? The stories we tell about betrayal often focus on the dramatic flair, the affair discovered, the embezzlement revealed. But real betrayal, the kind that rewires your understanding of the world, is often a quieter, more insidious unraveling. It's not an explosion. It's a structural failure. And the painful truth it reveals is that we often design our own collapse by misunderstanding the very nature of trust itself. Let me tell you a story about David and Mark. They met in graduate school, two minds buzzing with the same frequency. David was the architect, the one who could see the entire system in his head, the coder who spoke in elegant, logical poetry. Mark was the translator, the one who could take David's complex visions and make the world see their brilliance. Together, in a garage that smelled of soldering iron and ambition, they built a startup. It was a classic partnership. David the reclusive genius, Mark the charismatic face. Theirs was a trust forged in late-night pizza and the shared delirium of creation. They had a handshake deal, 50-50 always. David trusted, Mark implicitly, with the world. Outside the garage, the investors, the clients, the business stuff. He buried himself in the code, in the beautiful, intricate machine they were building. He believed their shared struggle was their binding contract. The betrayal wasn't a shouted argument. It was a series of quiet administrative strokes. After a major funding round, A round mark secured with dazzling presentations based on David's work, David found himself called into a board meeting. Mark sat at the head of the table, his face a mask of regret. The board, a group of people David barely knew, voted to remove him from operational leadership. His own company. Mark placed a hand on his shoulder afterward. "It's for the good of the company," he said, his voice thick with faux sorrow. "You're the heart, but we need a different kind of engine now." The painful truth David learned in the agonizing months that followed, as he watched his life's work sail on without him, was this: trust is not a sentiment. It is a structure. That handshake was a foundation of sand. Mark had spent months carefully restructuring shares, whispering in board members' ears, reframing David's intense focus as instability, and positioning himself as the only viable captain. The betrayal was a hostile takeover, but one executed with